Okay, this video is going to talk about section 3.4, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and basically look at the practice mode and go through their tutor mode and show you their explanation and kind of add to it if need be, so that you have some extra instruction as you go through. So with the practice mode, section 3.4, some of these we can just kind of answer ourselves and talk through, but some of them I'm going to want to point out the explanation. It says, determine whether the following proportion is true or false. Choose the correct answer from the options below. So there are different ways that you can try to determine whether this is true or false. Just looking at the example 14/28, you might notice that 14 and 28 reduce and would become 1/2. If you divide both of those by 14, you'd reduce it down. This fraction over here is completely different. Greatest common factor looks like would be 1, so it's not something that would reduce at all. So definitely false. If we go to tutor mode, they'll give you a hint, it looks like, and they're going to talk about the definition of a proportion. The product of the means is equal to the product of the extremes. So when they say that, what they're talking about is multiplying, kind of a cross multiplication idea, multiplying through the equal sign and seeing if you end up with a true statement. But either way, I would say that's false, so we'll submit that as an answer. That's correct. Okay. Next example, find the missing values. Write your answers in fraction form without reducing to lowest terms. So you're going to try to solve for x over here to find the length of this triangle, and they want you to write your answer without rounding, and if you have an improper fraction, you'll leave it as that. The only thing is you need to reduce your final answer. As a process, when you have two triangles that are similar, it means that the angles are the same. So notice this little curve here, this little curve here. They're saying that these two angles are the same. I'm assuming that these two corner angles are 90-degree angles, but they look like they're the same. But the key is in the wording that they say triangle ABC, and that means is similar to triangle DEF. So if that's true, that means that corresponding sides can be set up so that one divided by the other in a particular triangle is proportional to the corresponding division in the other triangle. So if we go into tutor mode, let's see what they say. In a step-by-step on this problem, they say the first thing that must be done is to set up the proportion, which is needed to solve for this value. You may find it helpful to review similar triangles. So if we wanted to click on that, we'd find out more about what similar triangles are. But they're really just triangles with the same angles. Sides, are proportional. You have triangles of basically different scale. But then it says, therefore, the boxes provided below, enter the necessary proportion. So what we could say is x, which is what we want, is to, let's say, 6. So I'm going to say x is to 6, and that makes me write x over 6 as, and I look for corresponding in the same order, x is corresponding to 13 in terms of its location, the hypotenuse of this triangle. So x is to 6 as 13, and then corresponding to 6 would be 12. So x is to 6 as 13 is to 12. That's correct. And then what they're doing from here is they're saying, basically you could cross multiply. Now cross multiplication is a trick. We can do what they're saying here, but keep in mind that what's really happening is that you're technically multiplying both sides by the product of these two numbers, a common denominator. The best denominator to use would be 12, I would say, because that would be the lowest common denominator. But they're saying basically that 12 will multiply with x. So I say 12 times x, and that equals 6 times 13. Say on the right hand side 6 times 13, and submit. Okay, and then it's saying, okay, if you've got 12 times x equals 6 times 13, what would you end up with as an improper fraction? So you've got to multiply 6 with 13, you're going to end up with 78, and then divide both sides by 12. I do this on paper ideally, but you could work it out yourself to say 6 times 13 is 78, and then divide both sides by 12. You could work it out and check it out. Let's see. So I'm just reading through here. All that remains is to solve for x in this equation. Therefore, in the box provided below, enter your final answer as an improper fraction. If this is indeed my final answer, I'd want to make sure that it's actually reduced. So if I were to reduce this down, looks like both of these numbers are divisible by 6. So if I were to divide the top by 6, I end up with 13. The bottom I'd have 2. So I think 13 over 2 is what they're looking for. And that's correct. Okay. So they say go to the next part. You've done that correctly. And now they want you to solve for y. So by the same process, in the tutor mode, you can see that we'd have y is to 5. Well, actually we can do it the same way we did before. Y is to 6. As, correspondingly, 5 is to 12. That correct? Multiplying through the equal sign, 12 times y equals 6 times 5. And then if I multiplied 6 with 5, I would have 30, and then divide both sides by 12. I'd get y equals 30 over 12, which again, if you divide everything by 6, on the top and the bottom, I end up with 5 over 2. A lot of times you'd have a final answer of 5 over 2, you'd put 2.5, but for whatever reason, Hawks likes to leave things improper in certain problems.